Welcome into the Behind the Wall post-game show. We are at the Student Bookstore, downtown State College. Come on down here. We are here every Sunday morning, 10 to 11 a.m., and the Nittany Lion mascot will be here right afterwards, right at 11. So bring the friends, bring the family, bring the kids. It is a great time down here. No Keith Goon Conlin. Just gotta. Oh yeah, what's You want to shout out the book? You'll be down here. Why Penn State? Here, you got to show it here for the people. The Men in White's going to be here. We got a couple book signings down at the Student Bookstore. So come on down. We got a good morning planned here, downtown State College at the Student Bookstore. Yeah, no Keith Goon Conlin. Got a call from him about 10 minutes ago. He came in as questionable with explosive diarrhea. So we're going to see. We're going to see if he makes it. Who knows if he will or won't, but sounds like it was a long day for him. Sure, a lot of tailgating, as you know. I think that is normally the number one thing that Keith Conlin likes to talk about is his tailgating. So, guys, please leave comments in the comment section. If you are listening on the radio, you can also check it out on YouTube or Twitter. I am live on both. We're going to be talking Penn State, Washington. Penn State really rolled over Washington 35-6. And it really just felt like one of those games where you get back on track. And I think that is what Penn State needed from this game, especially going into a stretch of 4 games where it was like, hey, okay, Washington and Minnesota are kind of tough games. You have to make sure you don't let one slip. But if you win all 4 of these games, you're sitting in a position, especially with a couple upsets yesterday, not that it matters too much because you can't go any higher than the number 5 seed if you're Penn State, because the top 4 teams are all the playoff winners. All the top 4 teams of the playoff are all the conference winners from this season. So if you're Penn State, the highest you can go is 5, but you're still probably looking at 6. But nonetheless, Miami goes down yesterday. That was a big one. Obviously, Georgia goes down. So number 3 and number 4 fall yesterday. There was a couple other teams. BYU barely snuck out against Utah at 1 a.m. while everybody was resting their eyes after a long game. So where Penn State sits right now, you get your swagger back. Overall, really just a good day from everybody at offense, defense, special teams. Could have been first kickoff return. I think that would have been the first kickoff return probably since, would that have been Lamont Wade in 2020? I think 2020 against Illinois. Was that a punt return? I'm trying to think the last kickoff return. I think it was Lamont Wade in 2020. So it would have been a while. That got called back, but it was nonetheless a good game in all forms of it. Overall, though, the coverage, yeah, shout out the comment section talking about the Peacock coverage. It was just horrendous. There's really no other way to describe it. You turn on Peacock 2 minutes before the game, and you still have just a Peacock screen that just says like game coming shortly, and it's just like some music playing. It's like they couldn't even get like an intro to the game, a little 10-minute preview on Peacock. And then the announcers, Colt McCoy, was having a rough time out there to announcing that game. So yeah, it was not the best coverage of the game at all. Hopefully we don't end up on Peacock much more, because that was man, that was it was a rough watch. I know some Penn State fans were talking about boycotting it on TV and not paying for the Peacock subscription, but it was worth it. Penn State looked good. It was fun to watch. And I'd say the biggest takeaway was learning from what we did wrong last week. We were in the red zone a couple of times and we came away with no points. Well, it was quite the opposite now. And Andy Kotelnicki made sure that he was going to score when we got in and around the goal line. And he pretty much did exactly what the fans were asking. They said, hey, where was Bo last week? Where was Tyler Warren? Well, you get down near the goal line. He gave Tyler Warren a couple carries, a couple touchdowns. Bo Prabula obviously started the game off, getting that going. So it was a really good day for the offense, like I said, to get back on track. And I think that's the opportunity that this Washington team presented. Not really necessarily a great team, but a team, if you play around with them, they can give you a little trouble. And you saw that they beat USC. They beat Michigan this year. But I think this was one of the more strong Penn State wins. I think if we would have came out in that third quarter and been just a little bit more dominant, I would have been feeling even higher on the moon with this win. So it came out a little bit slow in the third quarter, but still, what we were able to do to them through the rushing attack was really impressive. And I think it's been happening to them for a little while now. But we haven't broken 200 yards rushing in I think since Illinois. So it's been a little while. To get 266 on the ground means a lot to this offensive line, means a lot to this rushing attack. Because if you were listening, we talked about it all week. This Penn State offense relies on its rushing attack. That's where it all starts at. So if you're not able to consistently run the ball, then the rest of the offense starts to get kind of shut off. So that's why you saw it start to become hard in the past couple of weeks to stretch down the field, even just get the run game going. And we were able to also run the ball outside. That is something that we've been kind of on and off with. It's these past couple of weeks, especially against Ohio State, was not easy to really get outside in the run game. But we did that. And then shout out Corey Smith, young Corey Smith getting in the game. Nick Singleton, obviously banged up. We do not know the extent of the injury. Coach Franklin was asked about that last night after the game, and he obviously said, hey, I don't really have much to say. So we will see where that goes with him and if he can get back on track now. I mean, the good news is we do have Purdue next week, which is Purdue's they are the worst team in the Big Ten. So it will definitely make life a little bit easier. I don't think that's really a game you need Nick Singleton in, but you also obviously start to get worried when I don't think this injury had anything to do with his previous one, but anytime a guy starts to continue to get banged up throughout the season, you want to make sure Nick Singleton is healthy for this playoff run. You have to have him because he is the explosive vocal point of this offense. When Nick Singleton can be explosive in the run game, that's what opens everything else up. But I'm really happy to see Corey Smith. His family is a really great bunch of people. They would always come around to mine and T. Frank's pregame show and over in front of the BJC, and just very sweet people. And glad to see him get a really good opportunity and talk about breaking one outside and taking it almost to the house. Corey Smith did. I think as some people were starting to fall asleep, may have just been me, but started to get a little tired towards the end of that game. It was those 8 p.m. kickoffs, man. Those are long days for us, I swear. Let's see. What are you guys saying? Once again, you guys can check. If you are listening on the radio or anywhere else, you can go at Behind the Wall with Landon Tangwall on YouTube or at Landon Tangwall on Twitter. Josh says, do not look past these next 3 opponents for Penn State football. The Penn State Whiteout game should be on Big Ten Network or Fox next year. Yeah, no, you can't look past them. Like I said, I think you don't want to look past anybody, but Purdue really is not in a good place. But I think Minnesota, even though they lost to Rutgers yesterday, didn't play their best game, that is still a team that if you come in and you are lacking, they will punch you in the mouth, and they have the ability to have a consistent run game. So it's still a test, and you're going out to Minnesota. So you got to go out there and kind of deflate them early on if you're Penn State. But that seems kind of like the last test for Penn State until we get into the playoffs. It was like a offense was reversed last night. Fast-paced, explosive in the first half, sort of slow in the second half. Yeah, I mean, look, everybody's been begging for a quick starting Penn State offense, and finally we did that a little bit. It was refreshing to see. It was refreshing to just constantly go down to the end zone and see 7 points on the board. And the game got out of hand very quickly. And we haven't really felt that too much this year, where it's like, oh, we're gonna be able to kick our feet up and enjoy this game and be comfortable. We haven't really done that because we've just been a second half team the entire year. Well, now you're a first half team, and oh yeah, Nick Romano, good call. Singleton had a kickoff return against Rutgers in 2022. That's right, forgot about that. Yeah, should have had another one last night. That hurts. That would have really, I feel like, capped off the night and could have made the second half a little more explosive. Do I agree with the call? I don't really think so. I think that was kind of wishy-washy, but it obviously hurts for Nick Singleton. But nonetheless, he was good. Obviously, averaged 6.5 yards per carry on the ground. So need to make sure he's healthy. Doesn't seem like it was a super serious injury, but nonetheless, we have to wait for Coach Franklin. Who knows? Maybe he will have some news on Wednesday. Or definitely probably won't have it on Monday. I can guarantee you that. But guess what? Those reporters, they are still going to ask. You can best believe that. Do you think Minnesota will be a night game? Nah, I think Minnesota will hopefully not. Hopefully that's a 3:30 game. keep it a little bit earlier in the afternoon. But look, a great job just getting Tyler Warren involved as a whole with Kotonicki a week after where it was really difficult to get Tyler Warren the ball, it felt like, in space and what we were normally used to with him this entire year. And then he gets kind of, shut down, but is really more just double teamed. And when a player is double teamed, you need other guys to step up. And it was hard for that to happen last week. But now you get Tyler back involved, especially in the red zone. And it allowed the offense to thrive. And when they were striking in the red zone and continuing to score touchdowns instead of field goals, well, it gets everybody just that much more excited in the offense. You could really kind of see them starting to get their swagger back that they had been kind of lacking a little bit after last week. Now, I think also the defense obviously deserves a big shout out, only allowing 6 points. And this is a Washington offense that isn't necessarily like super impressive, but they have been somewhat explosive. And I think they actually did a really good job containing Jonah Coleman, number one, the running back. And even early on, it looked like, okay, he's going to be a little bit of a problem today. Not so much, just 11 carries for 24 yards. He was averaging, we held him to 2.2 yards per carry. I mean, that is some dominant defensive line play and front seven play, really, in general. Let's see. Josh Bazin said, head coach Franklin did a great job of re-energizing his players by keeping their focus on the larger prize. Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked about this pretty much all season that this team is battle tested and they have good leadership. And we've seen that at every turn. West Virginia, Bowling Green, USC with Drew Aller being tested and coming back. So at every point, this Penn State team, I'd say they're one of the more battle-tested teams in college football. It pays off, and it pays off to have really strong leadership, and that leadership really only comes from the top down. So, shout out Coach Franklin and the whole gang. Let's see, concussion maybe. Hyperbaric chamber should be used ASAP. Look, we got Dr. Murphy in the comment section. I'm sure they're doing everything they can do. But I would say, like I said, going into a game against Purdue, whatever Nick Singleton's injury is, hey, let Corey Smith get some carries. Continue to let Katron Allen get the load. I don't think that's something you need to play with or rush at all because you need to make sure that Nick Singleton is healthy going into the playoffs because we need him. Best believe that. That is one of the most explosive parts of our offense. And yeah, Coach Franklin definitely does deserve some credit for what he did yesterday. That is a way to rally the guys and get them back. And obviously the fans deserve credit too. I think there was like a little bit of speculation and some people thought, hey, the fans won't be as rowdy or as into it as they have been in, whiteouts in years past just because of where we're at. Normally the whiteout is early on in the year and we're undefeated. Coming off of an Ohio State loss has a little bit of a different feel to it. But it was still good. It felt really good. It felt good to get that dominant victory. And we've been doing that for the past couple of years in the whiteout, Minnesota, Iowa, Auburn, just kind of dominating. But as always, like I said, yeah, the fans were absolutely fantastic being out there, being extremely supportive and making sure that they affected the game early on. Started a couple false starts, delay a game, that type of thing. It was great to see the Penn State fans still be in it, still be involved. And defense did so well that Washington had to bench their starting quarterback, Will Rogers, and he just wasn't really able to stretch it down the field when he was benched. He was 10 of 13, so he was completing his passes, but he couldn't throw it down the field. He didn't have enough time to. The Penn State defensive line was just getting after him. So yeah, 10 of 13, but he averaged 4.5 yards per pass. So not anything too good at all. And then obviously had the interception. And if you guys were watching, I told you guys earlier and kind of tweeting earlier this week and saying, hey, he is one of those guys that will just kind of throw you one. And especially when you put some pressure on him. So, and credit to Tom Allen, he was bringing some blitzes. He was being extremely aggressive. And that was kind of, I guess some people's critique on Tom Allen was, hey, is he aggressive enough? Does he get after the quarterback? And especially I think this is a defense that is very good, not as good of a pass rushing defense as we were last year with Chop Robinson and Adese Isaac and kind of what those guys did, because you just don't see it in the sack category as much. You saw it last night, I think 5 sacks. Shout out Abdul Carter, just making Will Rogers and Damon Williams Jr.'s life not fun last night. Let's put it like that. Abdul Carter, two sacks and 4 TFLs. That is insane. Last week, he had 2 sacks, 2 TFLs, comes back, 2 sacks, 4 TFLs. He is playing like someone that wants to be drafted inside the top 10. That is for sure. So love to see that from him. And then obviously Jalen Reed coming through with a really, really great interception. So Josh says Penn State football should have a survey for students, alums, and fans to pick the whiteout game after the Big Ten Network releases updated 2025 schedules. That's a good idea. I don't mind that. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, they're gonna, Pat Kraft and company, they're gonna lobby their best for whichever game they want to try to make the whiteout. And obviously, we've seen that TV deals, they rule the world at this point. There is no really negotiating with, say, Fox. If they want to put a game at Big Noon, it will be at Big Noon. And that was something that I thought was interesting. I sat down with Guido D'Elia, who is the creator of the Penn State Whiteout. You can check out that on my YouTube channel. We released that on Wednesday earlier this week. And he told a story about the first whiteout at Notre Dame, with Notre Dame came here 2007. And it was supposed to be a noon. ESPN said, hey, all we have is the noon time slot. And they're like, nah, that's not going to work. First whiteout against Notre Dame, we can't do that. So Guido D'Elia and Tim Curley at the time negotiated with ESPN's head guy, and they got them. They were like, they had NASCAR in the middle of the day, and then they had, I believe, LSU, Tennessee, or at night. And they got LSU to push back to 8 p.m., and they snuck Penn State in at a 6 p.m. kickoff right after NASCAR and before the LSU game. And that is how the first whiteout was, at 6 p.m. So yeah, it was a very fun one, I'm sure. It sounds like a good time. And obviously 2005 wasn't a true whiteout, but that 2005 game against Ohio State was what kind of really set the scene for this Penn State whiteout tradition. All right, we're going to take a break real quick. I don't normally take breaks, but I need to go find some water because my throat is very dry. It was a long day yesterday. So we're going to take a 2-minute break, and we will be right back.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
Get up and get going with the Happy Valleys, 98.7 The Fox.
All right, welcome back into Behind the Wall post-game show. We are talking Penn State, Washington. Man, it was a good one, especially for the defense. And we talked about this a little bit in the pregame stuff. Washington came into this game averaging over 100 yards in every single game they have played in this year on the ground. That has been their identity, and that is where they make all their money. And really getting their running backs involved, especially Jonah Conlin, who has had some really big days. Iowa, a couple other places, they really ran the ball well against some good defenses, and now averaged 2.2 yards per carry for that entire Washington rushing attack. And that's the second time that a team has come in averaging over 100 yards per game in every single game of the year. We did it against Wisconsin and a couple other teams, and we hold them under 100 rushing yards. So, I mean, this, as much as this defense takes a little bit of heat for maybe not being as good as in years past, nonetheless, still a fantastic defense that has done some really good jobs against some pretty formidable rushing attacks, I would say. And overall, obviously, they brought in Damon Williams Jr. And if Damon Williams Jr. didn't have that 43-yard rush, I mean, you're looking at them having like 30 yards rushing. I mean, it was overall a pretty much a beatdown up front for us. I think on both sides of the ball. If you're holding them under 100 yards rushing and you rush for over 250, I call that domination, and that this game looked a lot like the Illinois game, and that is kind of what we wanted to do to get back on track. Be a physical bunch up front, and allow our guys to just kind of get rolling. Allow Katron, Nick, and obviously now Corey Smith to get going at running back. So that run game is something that we're going to depend on, especially as we get into the playoffs. That is something that Penn State's the identity, and I think this is what we did to start the year off. First 4 or 5 games, it was like 220 passing yards, 250 rushing yards, an extremely balanced offense that could do everything. And I think that's why we saw the offense working so well and the way it did at the beginning of the year, because it was so balanced and the defense really never knew what was coming. And now you look at a team that in a couple games in Illinois had to go full run game and kind of rely on that. At USC, had to fully rely on the passing game, and then kind of got back. Wisconsin, it was good, and then really neither worked against Ohio State. So when Penn State came into the game, and you got to give Coach Franklin and Andy Kotelnicki credit, they said, okay, what do we want to reestablish first? That needs to be the run game. And then I think after that, it was like, okay, the passing game will take care of itself. We will get that going off of the run game, and that's really what they did, and they just did a fantastic job doing that. A couple of just long runs. Obviously, Corey Smith broke off the 78-yard run, but Nick and Katron both had runs over 13 yards, so doing a great job being explosive, too. That is something that Coach Franklin definitely emphasizes every single morning. After the games, the Sunday mornings, you come in, you meet around, I guess 1 p.m. is when the guys get in. So you get the morning off. You get to hang out with the friends and the family that came to visit. And then you go into the facility, and one of the first things you'll see on the screen every week, Coach Franklin puts up the turnover battle. So who won, lost the turnover battle, and then who won, lost the explosive play battle. And generally, if a team won both of them, which then you probably are living in a good world, and you probably won the previous day. And then the other thing he will put up, and I guarantee you, especially after yesterday and kind of where we're at in the season, Coach Franklin will always put up the upsets. That actually is the first thing. He will, I'm guaranteed, he's talking about Georgia, he's talking about Miami, and he's saying, hey, it is hard to win in college football. You got to enjoy the victories, because you could be any of these teams that are losing the teams they are not supposed to lose to. And I think that's something that Coach Franklin does a great job of. And I think it's because he always makes the players keep their eyes on the prize of, hey, this, especially because the season is just not over. Normally we're trained. It's like Ohio State loss equals season over. That's what it's been for the past 10 years pretty much. But now when Ohio State lost to Penn State doesn't necessarily mean the season's over. Obviously it hurts, and I still kind of can't get over the hump really, but at the same time, you gotta enjoy the wins that come. It is not that easy. And really, I think in college football, we're starting to get into a world where, like, say the NFL, it's really not an expectation at all for a team to go undefeated. Like, you hear when players are talking about what they want to do in a season, do you ever hear them say they want to go undefeated? Not really, because it's virtually impossible nowadays. And I don't think it's not nearly as hard in college football, just because of how much better teams are than other teams. There's so much more discrepancy. But at the same time, you can see, because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, teams are evening out. If you are a second string guy at Michigan, you go and play, and I might want to go start at Indiana. I might want to go start at Rutgers or somewhere else, just because it's that much easier to leave and go do that. And that's what we're seeing. So I think you're going to see a lot of different national champions each year. I don't think we'll see as much of the reign of domination like Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, where you just go 3 or 4 years and you dominate all those seasons. So it's definitely evening out, and there's just more opportunity for teams to win. And that's what happens when you put in a 12-team playoff. A lot more crazy things can happen. So a couple questions. Franklin Fanatic says, do you anticipate everyone playing in a future playoff aside from injured players? Yeah, I don't think there is. Trust me, there is. I mean, that is the one thing. There's going to be no opt-outs from the playoffs now. That is the good news. I don't anticipate anybody opting out, because it's not, at the end of the day, like, it's not when you go to a bowl game and you opt out, and it's not in the past couple years, in the past 10 years, when it hasn't been a true big bowl game, it's pretty easy to want to opt out. If you're a player, you want to go get your NFL career started. But if you start a journey with a team at the beginning of the season and you're still in the playoffs and you still are really just in the hunt to win the national championship, I would be extremely surprised to see any opt-outs ever in college football playoffs. Now, on the flip side of that, I think we're going to see an insane amount of opt-outs that are in the other bowl games that are not the 12-team playoff. Virtually anybody that's a good player that thinks they might go to the NFL is probably opting out. So those bowl games that are not in the 12-team playoff, I think, are going to probably start to almost disappear. I mean, you lose so much of the wow factor and the interest and the intrigue if you're not. I don't know. There's not a lot that you are really playing for at that point. Is kind of what it feels like. But let's talk about a couple. I mean, the upsets. Number 3 Georgia scores 10 points against Ole Miss. Ole Miss 28-10. And it started out Jackson Dart threw a pick early on. He looked like he was scared, and it was like, oh, this Georgia defense is going to have him in a bad way all night. Turns out it was actually Carson Beck that wasn't really in a good way. Overall, just didn't look very good, didn't look comfortable, couldn't really stretch the ball down the field. And then Georgia couldn't rush the ball. They ran for 59 yards against Ole Miss defense that, we played against them last year. They were decent, but I don't think someone that should be holding Georgia to under 60 rushing yards. So pretty crazy upset. But yeah, Lane Kiffin, he is one hell of a coach. So Ole Miss still sitting there alive at 8-2. And that makes you question. I guess there has been talks of Penn State can't get the 5 seed because the loser of the SEC conference championship or the loser of the Big Ten championship will get that 5 seed. Well, I think there's a couple interesting scenarios where Penn State actually could get the 5 seed. Someone playing in that SEC championship could, if the loser could have 3 losses, that's very possible. So I don't know how I feel about, the opportunity is there. I think a lot of people are saying, hey, there's no chance. But if Penn State wins out and they continue to win out consistently, there's loss bias in the playoff committee when they are choosing. If a team just lost, they are more likely to punish them. And if you lose, that's why but even when 2014, when this all came about with the college football playoffs, if you lost early in the year, you could kind of make up for that throughout the year. If you started to have some really big wins, it was like, oh yeah, they're not the same team anymore. But if you lose in that last week or you lose in that conference championship, well, guess what? That plays a big role in what they decide to do. So should be interesting to see. But I think Penn State could have an opportunity to be the 5 seed and then play maybe the 12 seed, who could be a group of 5, like a Boise State, something like that. But if Josh asked, if Penn State football gets a college football playoff game, who do you think the matchup will be? Yeah, I think the fans you wouldn't be able to beat Notre Dame. If you could bring Notre Dame to Beaver Stadium in December, what would that be, December 21st? Imagine if we had a little snow, Notre Dame's coming to town. It'll probably be a whiteout again, so buckle up for that. Basically the fourth whiteout of the year, but that is likely coming. But I think if it could be Notre Dame, that would be a historic matchup, especially for the first ever playoff game in Beaver Stadium. And I think the first ever December game. I doubt we have ever played a December game at Beaver Stadium. Don't quote me on that, but I don't know a time we would have. So should be fun to watch and keep an eye on and kind of speculate who we are going to play. Yeah, I don't know if I want to play Ole Miss. I'm going to be honest, Franklin Fanatic. I'd much rather play Notre Dame than Ole Miss, because anytime that passing attack for Ole Miss it's still fairly good. I mean, maybe it's not the same, and they do rely a little bit on the rushing attack, but those receivers are still very legit. So I don't know if I really want to see them. And then the other upset was Miami, and honestly, Miami they've been asking for it. Like it was just a matter of time. It was like, which one of these bad kind of ACC teams is going to beat them? And I think a 6-4 Georgia Tech they're a pretty good team overall. And our boy J.J. Vandenberg, former Penn State defensive lineman, had the game-winning fumble recovery off of Cam Ward. So I love to see him balling out down there. Man, 3-4 go down. I mean, that's what I mean. The upsets on this season, I feel like I've never seen anything even close to like it. It's just there's so much more just evening out of just how good a team is, because they are able to grab. Georgia Tech could go out and throw $800,000 at a player and just bring them in and say, okay, be impactful for us. And it's easy to be able to do that. You can just pay guys to come play for your program. It has become a lot easier. But let's get back to Penn State for a little bit. A couple guys I do want to talk about. Zion Tracy, I think it was kind of a bad call on him early on. He had I believe it was a holding call, but overall he's playing really good coverage, playing in the slot, playing just physical, being a fairly good tackler. But I think he's starting to become a guy we can count on in that slot. Whether we put Jalen Reed down and around the line of scrimmage or we put Zion Tracy there, I'm starting to feel really comfortable with him. And I think that was a place where there was definitely a question mark coming into the year with us losing all three of our starting cornerbacks. We had some answers. A.J. Harris really came on the scene. And if you think A.J. Harris, you don't really hear his name a whole ton, and that's probably a good thing for a cornerback. They're kind of like offensive linemen. If you don't hear their name, it's a good day for them. So A.J. Harris is playing some really good ball at cornerback for Penn State. And I think, like I said, we needed that after Kalen King and Johnny Dixon were playing some really, really efficient defense for us. We needed to reload, and James Franklin did that in the transfer portal, actually, which is, funny enough, just slowly building it. It's not one of those we're not one of those teams at Penn State that is going to build an entire team off of the transfer portal, because that's just not the identity of how we get down and what Coach Franklin wants to do. But you best believe he is going to add a couple small pieces to the team and where he sees fit. So, I mean, going into this offseason, I guarantee you we will find a couple holes on the roster, and Coach Franklin will fill them through the transfer portal. Now, talking about the rest of the defense, like I said, I think Tom Allen did a great job bringing some really exotic fronts, especially on third downs. You saw the entire defense pressed up in and around the line of scrimmage, moving Abdul Carter around. And look, I mean, that was, like I said, that was one of his big critiques, and something that Manny Diaz was probably, I would say, the most aggressive defensive coordinator I've ever seen in my life. Going against Manny Diaz in practices was hell. Think about like those 7-up looks and like what he shows in game. And imagine it was just like 10 times crazier in practice. Like, he didn't care. He was sending the craziest blitzes, and we had to be ready for all of them as an offensive line. So I went up against him a lot. He was a madman. And I think Tom Allen's starting to kind of find his groove of what he can do really with this defense that I think is still pretty dynamic. And, I think Kobe King had a pretty good day. Tony Rojas has obviously been kind of up and down so far this year, had a little bit of a rough game last night, missing some tackles. So want to see him kind of start to put it all together. I think he is up there with Abdul Carter and a couple other guys when it comes to the most talented and just most athletic guys on the field. So want to see him start to, like I said, just make his game a little more whole. He's very athletic. He gets to the ball, but sometimes his eyes plays tricks on him a little bit. Sometimes he overruns and he kind of shoots a gap that he should not shoot. And that is something that it's very important for linebacker play to have your gap integrity and make sure that you trust the other guys on the defense to force them into that gap, and you will make the tackle. And then one other, at the end of the day, it worked out well. I mean, the defense came out and gave up a 7-minute drive to the Washington offense, but hey, you hold them to no points. I can't really complain too much. So I think overall that was a good job, and it felt like, okay, hey, Washington's going to give us a game here, especially if they're able to drive like that. But I just think it was extended by a couple things. And really, we gave them a little bit of the underneath stuff on that first drive, and that's where they were just hitting it. It was all underneath. And then we said, all right, we're going to clamp down on that. We're not going to let them live in that world of just throwing underneath all day. And, that was it. Tom Allen clamped down, and that offense was pretty much non-existent the rest of the day. Let's read a couple comments here. You can check us out at YouTube at Behind the Wall with Landon Tangwall. And we all are here at the Student Bookstore, downtown State College. So come on down. The Nittany Lion mascot will be here signing autographs, taking pictures. We got a couple book signings here. So he will be here at 11 a.m. So make sure you guys bring the family. Come on down. We got 452 people in here. Shout out you guys. I will have a real more kind of direct post game that I'll be putting up on YouTube tonight. That isn't as much as kind of shooting the bull. We will sit down about 15, 20 minutes, give you guys all the facts, the stats of what happened, where we really improved, and kind of get ready for going into Purdue next week. So Dr. Murphy said Boise State barely won against a bad Nevada team, but Jonte is good. Yeah, Jonte, he's probably the Heisman. I don't know. It's the Heisman race isn't like super exciting this year. It was fun at first. I'm not a Travis Hunter fan. Let me know in the comments how you guys feel. I mean, I'm a fan. I think he does awesome stuff. I'm not a fan of him winning the Heisman, excuse me. I also think Tyler Warren should get the all-purpose player. I think he is more dynamic than Travis Hunter. Yes, I'll take that. Might be a little bit of bias there, but since Georgia and Miami lost yesterday, is there a chance we get the number 4 seed for the college football playoff? Warrior asked. No, so there is no opportunity for Penn State to get the number 4 seed, barring a really crazy route for us to get to the Big Ten championship, because the top 4 teams are all the conference winners. The winners of the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, and the SEC. They get the seeds 1 through 4, and then you fill out 5 through 12. So I think there's an opportunity for us to get the 5 seed. It just kind of depends on what happens the rest of the year. It depends on the teams that lose the SEC championship and the Big Ten championship. I think if Ohio State has 2 losses and they lose to Oregon again in the Big Ten championship, and we're on a 4-game win streak and we look hot, I think you could rank us over Ohio State towards the end of the year. And then, if it's whatever, it's a couple lost Georgia, whoever the loser is of the SEC championship, I think like I said, if we are hot and we're beating teams how we are supposed to beat them, we have a really, really good case for the number 5 seed. And that is a super favorable matchup. Whoever you get with the 12th seed coming into town, you're living a good life. And that is never guaranteed, but home whiteout, Beaver Stadium, against whoever the 12th seed would be, very likely a group of 5 team. I like our chances where we're sitting right there. So, but getting back to this Penn State team for a little bit, I'm looking through my notes from last night, and I have like 4 different times I say announcers are awful. The coverage of Peacock, really, I just thought it was so bad. I mean, there was nothing like really pregame, postgame. It was it felt like it was all kind of thrown together, and there was not a lot of time put into what they were trying to do. So hopefully we are never on Peacock again, and we don't have to worry about that. But one of the good things I think that the offense did, especially early on, it was the first drive. And shout out T. Frank actually said this, and we were talking about how Penn State always gets Tyler Warren involved early, and And often, very often, we have seen Tyler Warren have 2 to 3 touches of the football on the first drive in games. And what we did was get Trey Wallace involved early. I think we got him 2 touches on the first drive. So first one, and it was a clear emphasis to get him the ball. We did quad formation up at the top of the screen, so put 4 guys up there, and then Trey Wallace was one-on-one at the bottom. He ran a nice little slant route, got him the ball, 6-yard reception. And I don't think that, to the average person, that doesn't really mean a lot, but getting the chemistry going between Aller and Trey Wallace again means a lot to this offense, because like I said, we saw what happens when we don't have a number 1 wide receiver like last week that can separate and be, like I said, a difference maker. You can just play man and double team Tyler Warren if you don't have a guy that can win. So we need to continue to establish that confidence between Drew Aller and Trey Wallace. But 5 receptions, 84 yards, had a 28-yard reception for Trey Wallace. And that reception on the sideline that he had was really impressive that he hauled in. So like I said, and it was kind of overshadowed just because of what happened at the goal line right before halftime. But right before that halftime pick, he had a spectacular catch, Trey Wallace did, against Ohio State. And like I said, it was overshadowed. But guess what? He is the only receiver that has shown the ability to make a 50-50 catch and make a highlight reel type play and bail his quarterback out. So you got to keep going, Tim. You got to put the emphasis on getting Trey Wallace the ball. Trust me, they're going to get Tyler Warren the ball, but make sure that he's getting it. And then I think Liam Clifford and Julian Fleming it's kind of clear that Trey Wallace is the number 1 guy, and then it seems like Liam Clifford and Julian Fleming are kind of 2 and 3. And I think Julian Fleming had a couple nice catches. Someone that, if you leave open, he's going to make sure he catches the ball, and he will not, doesn't necessarily have, burner speed, but a really good, solid wide receiver for Penn State. But continuing to get Trey involved after a week that he struggled, I think is really good stuff from Koto-Nicki, because a lot of times you can turn away from a wide receiver if they aren't necessarily producing how you'd like them to produce, and you can say, I'll go somewhere else, especially with Trey with the drop, and then obviously what happened in the end zone, but went right back to him. Just played a really, really good game, Trey did. It was just efficient, and it looks like Drew has confidence in him, so excited to see that. I thought we got to talk about the Tyler Warren fumble for a little bit. Last week, that was the same exact play, that fumble. It was the same exact play as the Judkins play from last week, where he called it turn, fumble, and because it was Ohio State, they called it a incomplete pass, and then we have the same exact play, and it is a fumble. Didn't have too much effect on the game, I will say that. So, it was all right, but I feel like that was wrong to call it a fumble, especially after the precedent set on the field just last week. But yeah, Tyler Warren, getting him the ball in the red zone. Oh, it feels good. It feels, it's just, and what that tells me is, like, yeah, obviously we talked about it. Koto-Nicki, the team messed up near the goal line. They got it. They understood. They took the blame for it and said, hey, yeah, well, we probably made a mistake. Coach Franklin said that. He said, yeah, we probably should have. He basically said we should have gotten Tyler Warren the ball at the goal line. Our bad. We're going to fix it. And clearly they did, getting him the ball a couple different times on the goal line. And it's just that easy. When you have a 6'6", 265-pound tight end, that Tyler Warren is a big cat, and you get him the ball near the goal line, and it can jump like that. How do you not give him the ball more and more in those situations? So has proven to be a true weapon in the red zone. And overall, their defense just couldn't do anything. I'm looking at they didn't have a single sack or a single TFL. So, what that tells me is just utter domination by our offensive line. It just doesn't look like they had a good night at all. And anytime you don't even have a TFL, that means the offense, no TFLs and no sacks, the opposing offense is never behind the sticks. They are constantly living in a, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, and just operating in a good world. So if a team is efficiently running the ball and you can't get any negative plays on them, good luck, because they are going to steamroll you, just how we saw Penn State do last night. So Zach asked, I will have to watch the game again on TV because I was at the game, but I didn't see much of their O-line was holding. Do you feel there was a lot of missed holding calls that benefited Washington? Yeah, I think Abdul Carter was getting held a lot. Now, obviously, I'll have to look at kind of the advanced stats. He was getting a lot of pressure on top of his 2 sacks and his 4 TFLs. Abdul Carter had a really good night that felt like he was probably the most disruptive guy on the field from a really anybody. I'm going to be honest. I think he had the most impactful night. And then Jalen Reed led the team in tackles. That's something he's been doing a lot of this year, playing around the line of scrimmage, and whether it's coverage, whether it's, obviously having that pick later in the game where Rodgers threw it pretty much right to him. It was the easiest pick of Jalen Reed's career, but nonetheless, great for the NFL scouts to see. And Jalen Reed is taking advantage of every opportunity given to him. The only thing you can't help but think about what this defense would be like with KJ Winston and Jalen Reed at safety. I know it hurts, and obviously it doesn't really do you any good to kind of sit there and imagine what it'd be like. But Kevin Winston, in my opinion, was the best player on the field every time he stepped out there, and I think that Jalen Reed even has that argument. So you pair those 2 guys together, that would have been something special. But hey, what is meant to be and will happen. So Indiana steamrolled Michigan again. So that's interesting to watch. I mean, I think so. Indiana goes to a bye week now. And so they have a week to get ready for Ohio State. Let's see who Ohio State has after this. Ohio State just had Purdue. All right, cool. Now Ohio State gets to go beat up on Northwestern. And then they go Indiana and Michigan, both at home for Ohio State. So we will see if Indiana beats Ohio State. Indiana will go to the Big Ten championship. If Ohio State beats Indiana, Ohio State goes. So it's kind of a two Big Ten games for Ohio State to really decide what is going to happen with their Big Ten championship hopes. Landon, what does the DJO play card being held by the defense mean? My wife was asking and had no clue. DJO means don't jump off sides. So DJO is basically line up a couple yards back if you're the defensive line, not a couple yards. You just inch back a little bit because that means you're in a situation where they're probably going to go on 2 or something like that. So you tell the defense, hey, back up a little bit. We are expecting them to use a snap count. So just in case if you do jump, you're far enough back where even where you jump from, it's still not off sides. So yeah, that is what DJO means. Don't jump off sides. Yeah. It's always fun stuff like that to talk about because there's little things like that. And obviously now with the defense, and offense as a whole, like there's a big change where you can have mics in the quarterback's helmets. So I know, the funny part is like I don't even really remember that, but I just saw DJO and I was like, wait, yeah, that's I remember hearing that. I was like, that's don't jump off sides. So yeah, it's little cards like that still happen, but now you don't have all those signals and cards coming from the sideline. Thank you to Michigan for making that change. Because of Michigan stealing the signals, the college football made it okay for teams to have mics in the one person on the defense and one person on the offense. So for Penn State, Drew Aller has a mic in his helmet, and then on defense, Kobe King has a mic on his helmet. So if you look at the back, if you ever see the back of Drew Aller's helmet or Kobe's helmet, they have a green dot there, and that signifies that they have a microphone in there. So you can only have one guy on each side of the ball with a green dot. And if you're wondering, yes, Bo Perbula does have 2 different helmets because he has to have one helmet for when he goes out there, and when obviously him and Drew are on the field at the same time, he can't have a helmet that has a green dot on it because that would be 2 guys. But then also, if Drew, God forbid, got hurt, then Bo has to put on a different helmet. So against Wisconsin, when he came in at the beginning, he was wearing his helmet with no mic, and then when Bo came in later, that would be a different helmet that he was wearing the rest of the game when he was playing for Drew, because obviously he had to have that green dot on his helmet. And then the other piece of that too was the tablets on the sideline, and I think everybody always remembers the tablets. You always, when you get a look at the quarterback after the game or, mid-game after they throw a pick and they're looking at the tablets in the NFL, and then Tom Brady spikes a tablet into the bench. Those are those tablets that we are now able to have on the sideline, which is fun because it allows, I mean, it kind of makes you have to be a better coach when you can have the plays on the sideline. I don't really know the thought process as to why the NCAA did it, but it made it harder to make in-game adjustments when you didn't have the tablets on the sideline because you couldn't see what was happening in game. You basically, the coaches would always say, hey, we'll watch it later. We'll watch it tonight. We'll watch it tomorrow morning. Well, now that's not necessarily what you have to do. You can have instant feedback of what's happening because you come to the sideline, and I'll tell you, you get over there, you come off the field, and let's say for the offensive line, I sit down, I am out of breath, I'm spraying a Gatorade, water bottle on me, you got a fan screaming at you, cursing at you, and you're just kind of trying to take a breath, and then your coach says, all right, what happened out there on play 3? What kind of front did they bring? What kind of blitz was that? And you're like, dude, I just hit my head like 5 times. I'm trying to not die right now from lack of breath. I don't remember. And now this takes that away from that. So that is why the tablets being added were a really cool addition. And hey, talk about Tom Allen obviously being someone that adapts very well. Maybe Tom Allen has taken advantage of the sideline technology for Penn State. I think Drew Aller put another really efficient game. I'm going to be honest. He did what he needed to do, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's like Drew knows this year, I don't have to not be me. He doesn't have to be someone that is just throwing for 330 yards every game and 3 touchdowns. He knows that this team's backbone is the run game, and that is where we will get the offense going. That was the emphasis. Obviously, coming into this game, when you rush for 266 yards, it is a good day for the ground game, and it opened up the rest of the offense. It allowed Drew to be able to pass the ball downfield and really stretch out the field, and Washington had to respect that a little bit more than, say, Ohio State, or even really, I mean, we didn't throw it deep against Wisconsin either. So starting to kind of stretch it out really helped with that, and then getting Trey Wallace involved as well was something really big for this team. I think we had a first kicked field goal from Ryan Barker. Not too worried about it. It was kind of that's a bad angle for a kicker to be on the left hash he's on the left hash, left foot. Just kind of pushed it a little bit left. It was really close, but he will be all right. He will be just all right. And then Davian Collins and Elliott Washington both playing some really good football at cornerback. So like to see that, and I think that's what Coach Franklin said coming into this year. He said, hey, we got 5 or 6 guys at cornerback we think that we can start. And he has shown that. He's played a ton of different guys. Jalen Kimber had a little bit of a penalty yesterday. But nonetheless, he has been playing well. I think Alonzo Ford continuing to play well at defensive tackle, obviously losing a little bit of depth there with the loss of Akeem Beeman. But I think this is one of the deepest defensive lines we have seen at Penn State. Probably, it's been a long time since we've had a defensive line this deep. I don't think they're necessarily as productive as the defensive line from last year, but still, nonetheless, a really good defense that I think that is somewhere that we're going to go in the transfer portal. If you want to talk about the transfer portal, let's think about who we're going to lose. I mean, we already lost Akeem, but Devon Elise goes. He's in his 6th year. Zane Durant almost surely is probably out of here, headed to the NFL. Smith Vilbert at defensive end is gone. Abdul Carter's gone. We got a couple other 5th, 6th year, role players at defensive end. A lot of depth is gone for Penn State after this year. Obviously, Jalen Reed is gone on the back end, and I think you keep all the cornerbacks, but I think you're going to lose about half of this defense, and mainly up front. It seems like I would venture to guess we're going to keep Kobe King for another year, and then obviously Tony Rojas comes back next year. But a defense that is going to have to continue to try to put it together, but really good coaches on defense. And just where we sit this year, everything is still in front of this Penn State roster. It is all there for the taking. You can still win the national championship, and obviously it hurts because going into Ohio State, you could feel the energy in the air. I'll be honest. Like I remember, like even stepping out on my front porch last Saturday morning, it was like, oh my God. I was like, you can. This place is bumping, even 10, 15 minutes off of campus. And it was so fun because I think the fans knew what was at stake. It was the most beatable Ohio State has ever felt in a long time. And we got to have a real good shot at them, and a shot at, if you beat that Ohio State team, you had these last 4 games, and you go and play Oregon in a Big Ten championship. You beat Oregon there. You're the number 1 team in the nation going to the playoffs. So, which I don't think we have not been since 1999 was the last time we were ranked number 1. So obviously it hurts, but hey, it's still all there. It's in front of us. So you must be donating your big check to NIL. After Smith, number 24, broke the long game at the end of the game, were they trying to get him into the end zone? Yeah, I mean, obviously you kind of want to try to reward someone like that, but if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You don't want to be too disrespectful to the other team. But I mean, look, this is what we're gonna have. You have a Washington Huskies team that is average at best, and they have to come cross country at 8 p.m. to play this game. It was definitely not a recipe for success with them. And then Penn State, just unlucky for Washington. Penn State got beat up last weekend, and so they needed to take it out on someone, and they absolutely did that against this Washington team, just up front on both sides of the ball. If Penn State and OSU keep winning, they will inevitably meet again. Yeah, well, that is how that works. I have seen people say, that would be something. Imagine a Penn State Ohio State national championship. Now that would be can't even imagine. We're going to have some really, just these next couple of years, we're going to have so much cool stuff happen that has never happened before. And that is why I'm an advocate for where we are at in college football. As much as I know people don't like the NIL and don't like the transfer portal, and I get it. I think it's way too much sometimes. And guys are not staying true to their alma mater and actually want to be set someplace. They just want to bounce here, bounce there. What it has done, though, is it has created the most competitive college football season that we have ever seen up to this point, and I think we're going to continue to see more of that. And competitive meaning every game is just more competitive. We are more likely to have an upset. We're more likely to just have good games. I mean, you think this year of how many weekends you sit there Sunday morning getting ready for the NFL, and you say, oh, that was a really good Saturday slate of games yesterday. So I like where we're at in college football. It is amazing. And hopefully we do have a chance to get back at Ohio State in the playoffs. Joined late. Any word on Nick Singleton? Wade asked. No word really on Nick Singleton. Coach Franklin was asked about him. There's been some speculation of different injuries that he's had. No one really knows. I will tell you the good news is we have Purdue next week. They are far and away the worst team in the Big Ten. It is not even close. We go there. That should be a game where you do not need Nick Singleton. Get Corey Smith the ball. Looked really, really good there towards the end of the game. I don't think you risk anything no matter what. If it's his head, if it's his ankle, if it's his foot, doesn't matter. Give Nick Singleton some rest, and hopefully he will be back in action for Minnesota in 2 weeks because I do think we will need him there. Did anyone see the play that brought him out? Yeah, it looked like I said, I don't want to speculate. It looked like he got hit in the head. We don't really know. That has been the speculation has obviously been concussion, but no one knows for sure. And like I said, that is the good news that we have Purdue this week. It is not too much of a worry of hopefully we don't need Nick Singleton against Purdue. It is not the same Purdue that we went out and played in 2022 week 1. Which was my first start ever, was actually out in that game. And it was a close one. We were really, really close to losing in 2022 at Purdue week 1, and that would have completely changed how – that was the Rose Bowl year. I mean, that would have come – oh, no, it wasn't. 23 was the Rose Bowl. 22. What was it? Yeah, that was. Yeah, that was Rose Bowl. Yeah. So, yeah, that was a really big year. I feel like that was Sean Clifford's last year and just going to be Rose Bowl champs. That was a really, really – solid year. So now we're going back to Purdue for the first time since then, and should be a game where you get to put some backups in. Let's just put it like that. We will get into all that this week. But yeah, Penn State, I agree, Josh. Penn State should put up 50 points. Let's continue just rolling people, because if we just dominated Washington. If we can dominate Purdue and just keep stacking and then really dominate Minnesota like we should dominate Minnesota. They're a good team, but that's still a team you should walk all over. We can just take them, handle that, come back here, enjoy some Thanksgiving turkey, beat up on Maryland. We're talking 5-6 seed, and you are sitting your butts in Beaver Stadium December 21st for a Penn State Whiteout playoff game. I think that is the hope, and that is probably the most likely scenario where we sit at this point. So you guys get ready for that. But I appreciate you guys spending your Sunday morning with me. I will have a more, like I said, more defined sit down post game, about 15, 20 minutes, give you all the stats, facts, everything you need to know from last night of Washington at Penn State. So be on the lookout for that around tonight, around 6 p.m. But if not, I will be talking to you guys soon. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and you have a fantastic NFL Sunday.